Welcome back. Dalit protests rocked North India. From the west to east, protests against subclassification received support from most of the opposition parties. Yes, I am talking about protests which from Rajasthan to Uttar Pradesh to Jharkhand rocked the entire country. It was unexpected that the Dalit protests, which are confined to some areas, became so much of a pan-India protest. It led to lathi-charge in Patna, where many protesters were injured. Let me play out those pictures full screen to you. It was mayhem on the streets of Patna. We have an exclusive walkthrough from Bharat Bandh protest in Bihar, which I'll play a little later. But let me take you through all these visuals. In the melee, even the officers got injured. And then the Bandh was observed in Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh. And protesters also stopped the Darbhanga Delhi-Bihar Sampark Express. And we will take you to some of the political reactions of Tejasvi Yadav and Supriya Srinath and Sachin Pilot later. But right now the issue is this SC, ST sub-classification brought entire North India to a boil. When I use the word, it means to a boil. We will show you visuals from Agra, Lucknow, Gwalior, Ajmer, and then you will understand that suddenly the Dalit narrative has become extremely important in the Indian politics. But why have they gained so much of traction? Bharatiya Janata Party, which had substantial number of MPs from SC, ST seats in 2014 and 2019, did not get that much of traction. And these Dalit protests have started to become a bane for them. Let me first introduce Brijesh Pandey. Brijesh, why is this protest becoming a bane for Bharatiya Janata Party?
Well, I think, this particular judgment which has been given by 7 judges Constitution Bench of Supreme Court has turned into a political slugfest. And very interesting point is that Kartikeya today, LJP, among many other political parties like Samajwadi Party and others and RJD and all, today supported this Bandh call given by the Dalit organizations. The fact is that, the government of India also realizes that it has a potential to run away with the political narrative. And most importantly, you have to understand that in the next 10 months, elections are going to be held in several key states like Maharashtra, Haryana, Jharkhand, Delhi, Bihar. So, and if there is a potential of, the opposition parties running away with the narrative and lose the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes vote, then I think the BJP would be and the government would be in a real deep soup.
Okay, now let me go across to Dr. Birendra Prasad, Senior Assistant Professor, Center for Historical Studies, JNU, sir. These are unexpected visuals, Dalit protests that way in terms of its morphology have been pretty organized, but this time the anger was on street. So I would like to ask from you, the creamy layer concept looks good on paper, but why isn't it being accepted by the larger Dalit leaders or the political parties who represent the Dalit community, sir?
Sir, first we need to understand what to mean by cream. Does a government job for 1 or 2 generations really makes you cream, compensate for the centuries of discrimination your family has faced? The thing is that I will give you just one example from yesterday. Yesterday news came in Indian Express, New Indian Express, that my university where I am teaching, JNU, is planning to downgrade. It has around 200 posts of senior faculty level, professor and associate professor. And people are saying that they are not finding good qualified candidate at the level of professor or associate professor. So let's demote that post to assistant professor so that we can get some good candidates. At least we get some candidates. So this is the situation. That after 70, 80 years of reservation, people are not finding even good quality candidates for fulfilling the post in university. So this creamy layer concept, particularly among the Dalits, I don't think that it's a workable concept. We have at least decades to go before really a cream develops. In fact, most of the vacancies in higher academia, in many technical kind of cadre, that remains fulfilled basically due to this. So this is not the appropriate time to go for this kind of creamy layer concept. And one more thing, the Supreme Court of India judgment regarding creamy layer is more in the form of recommendation. It does not form a mandatory observance of that particular judgment. So this is not the time to go for a creamy layer. among the Dalits.
Okay.
The second question is by...
I'll come to you. I'll come to you, Professor. I'll come to you. I'll come to you. Ajit is also waiting with us. Ajit, you know, these visuals are very, very telling. I mean to say, they could have just responded differently to a protest. Isn't this a self-goal by BJP and its alliance partners in Bihar? A mistake to handle a protest roughly, where you are already suffering from this impression, where every leader from the opposition is like coming out with a red book and saying, well, you know, you are opposed to this interest. Why would they do something like that? I'm surprised as an observer.
Well, let me first point out that this is a real new kind of radicalization in the Dalit movement, especially in the Hindi heartland. You see, Maharashtra always had a very radical kind of, Dalit movement. In UP, because of Mayawati, Bahujan Samaj Party sort of led the Dalit movement. But in Bihar's Dalit movement was rather, always played a subservient role. Even with Ram Vilas Paswan, Jagjivan Ram around, there was always part of the mainstream politics. This is for the first time you see a new radical Dalit movement developing in Bihar. Of course, the same thing is taking place in UP with the Chandrasekhar as the leader. And number two, the LJP, which is a partner of the NDA, so Chirag Paswan, is very sensitive to his constituency. Despite being in the NDA, he has always sort of been with the protesters. Even in the past, we saw that he was supporting the reservation issue. It's basically JDU which is playing the BJP's sort of, one would say,
But Ajit, Mr. Paswan would say, वो तो हनुमान है, PM के. तो उन्होंने तो बोला था.
Yes, he बोला तो था. But at the same time, he is he is very sensitive to this radicalization. He takes a very tough stand. And if you remember his performance, it was the best in the Lok Sabha, 5 out of 5, all seats that he took, he won. So this is the emergence of a new ally, which is very strong. Maybe the JDU might in the future be replaced by, right now it's a small party, but it's growing in a very positive manner. And this is something which is going to be a challenge for the BJP. Reservation as an issue is the biggest challenge to Hindutva, and the entire Hindutva and the BJP needs to understand it, be more sophisticated towards it, do a new approach rather than keep sort of, scoring goals in its own side. So BJP is making mistakes here. Although BJP in the past has been very sort of enlightened about treating Dalits as well as tribals, right? Symbolically, if you look, and otherwise, Ambedkar is the new icon. But somehow it has slipped on the issue of reservation. Since the Lok Sabha elections, they need to get their act together. And this kind of police rampage, I think, is totally, uncalled for, because it provokes further radicalization.
Quick question.
Dalit,
Fair enough. Ajit says there is a radicalization of Dalit politics in Bihar. I'll come to you, Dr. Birendranath Prasad. But Brijesh, on this issue, there doesn't seem to be a substantive response from the government. There have been substantive U-turns.
Well, I think, there's not much the government can do. See, let's be also fair to the government. What do you expect government to do? Just like, to turn around completely debunk the order of a 7 judges constitution bench. The government is also in a tight spot. And I think, the government will also gauge as to the kind of level of dent this particular issue is going to be. And I think if the government feels that, closer to election or in some time, if they feel that this situation has a potential of torpedoing or jeopardizing their political interests, well, who knows, they might come up with some sort of, in parliament and make sure that they put a stay on the order.
For the viewers Just let me read out what the Supreme Court had said on the classification of SC and STs. The Supreme Court redefined SC-ST reservation for the first time since 1950. Ruling allowed states to create subclassification with SC-ST categories to benefit the most backward communities. The decision overturned the 2004 judgment which held that the SC-ST list is a homogeneous group. The court emphasized that the equality means fairness, not sameness, and recognized that SCs are not homogeneous. Subclassification is allowed but does not alter the presidential list under Article 341. States must provide empirical evidence to justify subclassifications which are subject to judicial review. Justice Gawai suggested applying the creamy layer concept to SCs, but this was not addressed by the Chief Justice. So now going back to Dr. Birendranath Prasad, sir, my colleague, esteemed colleague, Ajit said that there is a radicalization of Dalit politics. What is your take on it?
See, UP and Bihar Dalit politics, they evolved in a different way. If you see the UP Dalit politics, right, since 1950, I mean, Republican Party of India had a very substantial base in UP. UP, there are two things. First is the demographic way. Around 22% of the population is formed by the Dalits, of which of that 22%, roughly 60% are from a single caste, Jatav or Chamar. So, from 1950 onwards, there was this, this seeds of radicalization in Dalit politics in UP was quite there. In 1950, when RPI was Republican Party of India was contesting elections, especially around Agra area, they successfully coined the slogan, Dalit Muslim Bhai Bhai Hindu Kaum Kahan se aayi? So this kind of seeds were there in UP politics. Plus, UP, particularly the Jatabs or the Chamars, they have the demographic weight, they have economic advantage, plus they have the numbers in government jobs and others. So BAMSEP was very active here. It provided the most fertile ground for the experiment of Dalit politics, Bahujan politics of Ms. Sri Kasiram and later by Mrs. Mayawati. But in practice, it was just a kind of situation in which the Jatabs or the Chamars, they formed the core of the Dalit movement. And its ideological counterpart was Ambedkarite Buddhist, which became quite fashionable 1980 onwards. But in Bihar, this is certainly something new, this kind of radicalization, and I guess it would be primarily by the Paswan subcaste. Again, here you have to see, in some states, some castes have benefited more from this lack of bifurcation.
Very quickly for our viewers, sir. Do you think that certain subcastes develop vested interest? Can that happen?
Yeah.
Can't that happen?
Yeah, it appears on the face that certain subcastes have developed very strong pressure groups, and that has led to resentment among other castes. Please don't forget that this whole bifurcation debate was actually not started by the government, but by an individual petitioner from Punjab who belong to the Valmiki caste. Now take the case of Andhra. Here the Malaj and Madigas, they have been fighting over this bifurcation for decades. So this is not something imposed by government, but this is something coming from within. The Dalits are no longer a homogeneous community after 70 years of reservation.
I completely agree with you. I am really falling short of time, sir, but I think you made a point very succinctly. One, that there is Dr. Birendranath Prasad and Ajit K. Jha very clearly said, yes, there is a Dalit radicalization in North. And to remember one thing, that the concept of creamy layer is not bad. Certain subcastes benefit more than the other castes who are less in number. And I think this is an issue which will need to be confronted not only at the level of SC and ST, but also at the level of the OBC reservations. It is politically contentious. That is why politicians have not come out and taken firm line. But in future, the redistribution of wealth within the backward communities will have to be done. These tough calls will have to be subsequently taken.
In the heart of New York, an Indian spectacle unfolds. Step into the world of the elite saga, featuring influential Indians who've rocked the globe. From culinary geniuses
This has been nothing